Hi, I'm Dr. Walt Broadbent. Last December, one of the pastors at my church and I, Dean Siley, decided that we wanted to produce some videos. And first we began by making some actual speeches, and we talked about stuff that was very important for us to do, and we think for the church, and for people that have been suffering. I have been a psychotherapist for over 50 years, which of course is proof of insanity on my part. We decided that what we were going to do was to talk about some issues and things that were underground in some ways. So we put together a couple of talks, and we got real nice success with them. And we decided we would publish and produce some more of those talks in March. We all know what happened in March. So we have been planning to do something else. What we decided to do was to produce some YouTube videos that would take parts of the subjects that we wanted to talk about. We thought we would then present those through the church in Facebook. So we would have a 15 to 20 minute video about a topic, and then we would leave the rest of the time open for questions. We found that in the speeches that we did in December, that people wanted a lot of time to be able to talk and to air what was going on with them. We were in fact amazed at the depth of suffering that we saw with the people that we're working with. So we decided to dig deeply into the subject of suffering. My background, I'm going to give this pretty quickly. I guess I want to make sure that you understand why I feel like I'm able to offer anything to you at all. As I said, I've been a therapist for 51 years, secular therapist. I've been a Christian for 12 years. When I became a Christian, that is when Christ invaded me, very, very quickly I changed my ideas about what psychotherapy was. I was raised in a tradition that looked at people as essentially, my job was to find the pathology that they had and help them to relieve that pathology. What I found over the years was that, in fact, I helped them get better at their pathology, that some were able to really get better and have the life that they wanted. Many were not able to do it. They sort of languished in the suffering that they were feeling. I decided that I needed to do something different. My own experiences, and I'll talk in some detail about this as we go along. I've been a recovering alcoholic for 40 years. I got sober in 1980. That is one of the areas that we're going to exchange with you. The idea here is that we came up with the notion that there are four, we call them strands or paths or braids that we want to combine together to offer you information about suffering. The first braid for both Dean and I, the most important braid, is all of the work that we do in Christian counseling, Christian psychology, Christian theology, Christian doctrine, where we teach people to respect their own place on earth. We believe that God gave us all a plan, that He implanted it in us. The difficulty is that there are things that happen on earth that block us from understanding the nature of that. And many people don't ever understand God's plan for them. That makes us very sad, but we think it's true. We're going to be using a lot of the information that we got from doctrine, that we understand is a way to look at human beings and our purpose and our meaning. That concept is very important to us, by the way. That what we want to help people do is to discover the purpose. When we understand our purpose, life gives us meaning. So many people that I deal with, the word that best describes how they're feeling when they walk in the door is they feel empty. Emptiness it can be known as anxiety, it can be known as depression, it can be known as loneliness. There's all manner of words that we use to describe that sense of emptiness that we have. And our culture does its best to supply things, people, places that fill up that emptiness. And they do for a while, but they're not successful in an ultimate way. That's difficult for us. The second thread that we're talking about is psychotherapy. I'm Doesn't make sense for me to not talk about things that I studied and got good at doing for 50 years. We want to use those things that I've come up with and other professionals that are doing great work. We want to bring those into the pattern of what we're talking about. There's a lot right now about trauma, for instance, out in the world. There's new secular information about the nature of trauma and anxiety and attachment. How do people get attached to each other? And codependency and addiction of all sorts. And we'll talk about that in a sec. So that we want to bring secular psychology and psychotherapy in it and weave that with the study of God and God's movement in us. Third, we want to bring in the 12-step programs. People might say, well, isn't that part of the first or the second one you're talking about, which is secular study? I understand that, but the thing I think that's so unique about the 12 steps is it offers a specific path for people to get better. Now, AA talks about my powerlessness and my unmanageability with alcohol. And I think somebody figured out there are about 20 12-step programs that cover every possible topic of suffering that we humans can create. Overeating, gambling, sex, romance, relationships, codependency, there's all sorts. But the 12 steps remain the same. And Bill Wilson, who was the originator of AA, walked into his secretary's office in the 1930s and handed her a piece of handwritten paper. And he said to her, "Take these up, will you? I think God gave me these." And they were the 12 steps. We will talk about the 12 steps in some depth. What I want to get across to you at the beginning here, people think, well, I'm not an addict. Why would that be interesting to me? I understand that. And we'll go in some depth about the nature of addiction because our understanding of it has drastically changed in the last maybe 25 years. More than that, as I said, AA offers a systematic way of looking at change, which I want to share. The fourth way is one that may surprise you, the fourth thread. That is marketing and advertising. Marketing and advertising promises to fill our lives. We recognize, we see TV or media or out on the internet, wherever, we see ads all the time. And we hear that if we put some miracle goo under our arms or in our scalps, we'll live better lives. If only we had this car, this house, this product, this process, lives would be better. We buy that. And unfortunately, it works somewhat for a while. So the idea that we're talking about here is that those four things weave together. And we want to present ways for you to understand what it is that you're doing with yourself and how you may be creating your own suffering. When I was in undergraduate school back in 1904, I took a course in the psychology department, and that course in psychology was called Blocks to Creativity. The premise of the course was that they could not teach me how to be creative. I was already creative. You're already creative. We're creative in ways we can't even dream of. But we block ourselves from expressing that creativity for a lot of reasons. If you think about it, our country is not very much one for talking about creativity. That get a job and move along. Those are one of the things that we tend to think about. We're going to be looking at that idea. So those four things we're going to be interweaving, and I'll do my best to make sure that I'm really clear about what I'm talking about at any given time. We will be presenting some biblical information. We'll certainly be presenting some biblical, scriptural ideas about the way in which God talks about us working his plan, what he wants us to do. So I want to say a couple of things that will be shocking to you to start with. Maybe not shocking, but surprising. Number one is I do not believe that we can create a self program. Self-discovery, self-helping, self-fulfillment. All those things we do, all those things are possible, but ultimately they lack. Many people who have discovered self kinds of programs that put them together, at the end what they realize is it wasn't enough, that something was missing. I've had people that I've worked through various kinds of procedures in what I do, and they get to the end and they quote the old song, and that all there is. And it's true that in some ways that's true, given what we know. So that's one. Two, what I believe is that we cannot change our behavior to get what we want. It's the same kind of thing, I think. We can't change our behavior. We do change our behavior. Think about New Year's Eve's resolutions. What happens with New Year's resolutions? We do them for 3 days or a month even, and then we stop doing them. We can't change our behavior to get the effect that we want. So what can we do, and what is it we're supposed to do? And what we've kind of put together, all 4 of the threads that we're talking about, do something central that ties all together, and that's what we're going to be showing you, demonstrating. That is, what we have to change first is our hearts. Now, personally, I'm incapable of changing my heart by myself. I need supernatural powers. And I'm not talking about lucky rabbit's foots and karma and luck. I'm talking about a supernatural power in the universe. I know that there are people that might tune into this workshop, this seminar, this episode of what we're talking about. And as soon as they hear that, they will want to leave. And I say bon voyage. I don't mean that in a heartless way. So many times people start something that they don't want to really finish because they get scared along the way. And that brings me to my third point. The third point is one of the most important things that we're going to be talking about is your feelings. Our country is not very good at promoting younger people, children, in feeling their feelings. We're terrible as adults in feeling our feelings. We don't do that. And what I will be talking about all the way along here is the effect of not sharing, not identifying my feelings. There are 4 skills as an adult that we want to share with you and maybe teach you how to develop. The first skill that we want to give you as an adult is we want to help you become aware of your feelings. Now that sounds silly. When people come in to see me on a one-to-one basis, they tell me immediately, I know all about my feelings, I know what they are. But they don't. We're going to talk in some detail about the nature of feeling, counterfeit feelings, real authentic feelings, and so on. We want to give you a map, a guide that will help you to figure out, what do I want to do, what do I need to do with my feelings. I'm excited about that part. For me, all of the stuff that we're going to be presenting, all of it's heartfelt. I'm very much a believer that we must change from in here. We know that the Israelis held the heart as one of the most essential elements for humans. And our heart needed to be the thing that we hearken to. That our authenticness, who we really are, must come from in here to start with. Most of us are completely blocked in the nature of that, of understanding that. So first is awareness, knowing and understanding what your feelings are. Second is identifying what they are, being able to differentiate between anger and counterfeit feelings, or sadness, or grief, so on. And there's a relatively small list of feelings that we'll start with. What I'm interested in doing in the beginning is sort of giving you the basic color wheel of feelings, and then gradually teaching you, sharing with you, letting you discover how complex your feelings are. We're complex beings, and most of the complexity that we have is in fact from our feelings. We're all pretty good problem solvers. The problem is we tend with that to think we can solve our feelings. We can't. The only thing we're capable of doing with our feelings is experiencing them, feeling them. So the third thing, first one is awareness, the second one is identification. The third one is, and must be done, is to experience them. We can't run away from them. And then fourth is expression. People talk all the time about, I really want to know how to communicate with my wife, my husband, my children, whatever. Communication is very important, but what do we communicate? So in the next period of time, we'll be taking these complex subjects, breaking them down, offering you examples of how to take care of yourself and what to look for. We want you to become aware of what's going on inside you with your feelings. We want you to identify them. We want you to be able to experience them, and then we want to teach you how to express them. That's our hope. So I thank you, and I'm hoping for a very profitable and fun voyage.